Donald was stunned to find a sailor lying at the base of the cliff. He called me and James over right away. I told Donald to run back and grab a rope, then tied it securely around Donald's waist. He was the smallest of the three of us. He was the one who had to go down. Once Donald touched down safely, he rolled the man over and leaned in close to check for breathing. He quickly determined the man was dead. Then, Donald noticed a wooden crate nearby. He lashed the rope around it and signaled for James and me to haul it up first. However, the sailor who had seemed completely lifeless suddenly lunged up and blindsided Donald. Donald never saw it coming. He went down from one hit. The man pinned him hard to the ground. The man turned and tried to grab the crate back, but we'd already pulled it halfway up the cliff, well out of his reach, so he turned all his rage back on Donald. He seized Donald by the ankles and dragged him toward the water's edge. Donald had taken too hard a hit to fight back, and he could only watch as that man shoved his face into the seawater. James and I saw the whole thing from up on the cliff. We ready to strap it onto one of us and go down. But before we could move, Donald snatched up a rock and slammed it against the man's head as hard as he could. The man was already badly weakened. After a few brutal blows, he was dead. Back at the cabin, Donald was a wreck. He was terrified that once we got back to town, people would think he was a murderer. Then James grabbed a tool and walked toward the crate. He wanted to pry it open and see what was inside. But whatever washes in from the sea doesn't usually come clean. Once that crate was opened, it could bring a whole world of trouble down on us. James took that in and backed off. But deep in the night, I couldn't fight off my own curiosity. I picked up the oil lamp, crept over to the crate, pulled a tool from the drawer, and quietly pried it open. Inside, stacked in neat rows, were dozens of gold bars. But I didn't take a single one. I wrapped them back up and put everything exactly as I'd found it. The next morning when I came back to the room, I found that Donald and James had already forced the crate open. Seeing that, my stomach dropped. That many gold bars meant serious trouble lurking somewhere behind them. We were already in a dangerous spot. And to make things worse, the moment we hid those bars, people would assume we killed them for the gold. The three of us hit a deadlock. I stepped outside alone. I knew that once greed gets loose, it's nearly impossible to put back in the bottle. To keep Donald and James from going completely off the rails, I went back inside and laid out my plan. I told them we'd split the gold 3 ways, but they had to do things my way. We'd dump the body in the ocean. When the next lighthouse keeper came to relieve us, we'd each stash our share of the gold in our own bags. A year from now, I'd find someone trustworthy to convert it to cash. Donald and James heard me come around, and they agreed on the spot. We got to work on the body, but right then, I caught sight of a fishing boat on the water, heading straight for the island. I knew they were coming for those gold bars. The boat docked, and 2 men came ashore asking me about the sailor. I told them we had found the lifeboat, but the crewman was already dead by the time we got to him. They asked if we'd seen a crate. Their angle was obvious. They were there for the box. I kept my composure and calmly told them I reported it via radio 2 days ago, and someone had come out just 3 hours ago and taken both the body and the crate away. They clearly didn't buy that the timing worked out that neatly. As the tension in the air started rising, Donald and James stepped up beside me. Outnumbered, the 2 men didn't push it. They turned and asked Donald and James the same questions and got exactly the same story.